5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman Pappas and Ranking Member Bergman, and thank you all for being here today. It is of utmost importance that we continue to provide and maintain the highest quality of care for the men and women who have served our country so bravely. The deaths of Lewis A. Johnson VA Medical Center in Clarksburg, West Virginia, and the sexual assault allegations in Beckley, West Virginia VA Medical Center are not only troubling, but they are unacceptable. As members of Congress, it is our job to support swift and proper investigations to ensure that such instances never happen again. There have been considerable progress that's been made with the quality of care that our veterans are receiving following the enactment of the Mission Act and efforts to address the veteran suicide epidemic. Our service members should feel safe and comfortable seeking care at the VA, and these events show that there needs to be additional oversight of clinicians, proper removal of bad actors, and monitoring of care. The tragic deaths of our veterans at the Lewis A. Johnson VA Medical Center in Clarksburg and the sexual assault allegations at the Beckley VA Medical Center, once again, are unacceptable. We must work together to ensure the families of our nation's heroes get the answers that they deserve and that we can work to prevent these tragic events in the future. I fully support the investigation into this matter, and I appreciate the committee's interest and oversight. Dr. Lieberman, many of the veterans in my district are extremely faithful to the VA and the quality of care that they receive there. Do you have any suggestions on how we can take VA policies that are made here in D.C. and ensure that they make it down through the leadership ladder to guarantee that the individuals are aware of the policies and are implementing them correctly?
Thank you for that question. A very important question. So we take this very seriously when we implement policies. We are in the process of modernizing, and that's a big part of our modernization, is to ensure that we're adequately communicating to all levels of the organization. We start at the top and have national meetings, but ultimately it's spread through the VISNs and then down to the facilities. We also have, through our clinical leadership, we expect them to communicate, and we expect the communication to be two-way. We have national calls by specialty, by different parts of the organization, nursing, clinical areas, and we talk about what are the challenges that the field is facing. What are their concerns if we're implementing a policy, making sure we get their input. We don't want decisions to be made always at the top. We want to make sure that we get input from frontline staff so that our policies can be most effective.
I'm glad to hear that. Dr. Day, what are the concerns and/or benefits of incorporating a direct observation policy?
Thank you for that question. I think that the direct observation in many instances allows an expert, for example, going back to the eye surgeon, to observe whether or not it's a go, no-go using the policy, the airline language as to whether a surgeon could actually do that job or not. If you have an individual that you're going to give privileges to do a colonoscopy to, and you watch that person do the colonoscopy, and you see the same images that that person doing the colonoscopy is seeing, you can have a conversation. Are they recognizing the right landmarks? Are they seeing pathology and biopsying it appropriately or marking it appropriately? Did they get to where they want to go, to the cecum, to call it a complete colonoscopy? So I think that by observing and watching an individual do the skills they're being hired to do, you can learn a great deal. There are other areas where it's much more difficult. It's an expensive process, but I think it's one that should be considered and applied much more freely than it is currently in the VA.
If we were to incorporate this policy, what would it look like in terms of staffing, timeliness, and quality of care?
So I don't have an answer to that. I think that that would require work I haven't done to try to figure out what the staffing requirements be or what the actual implementation strategy would be. But by observing and reporting on the cases that we've seen recently, we're seeing evidence now that physicians are making errors that we didn't used to see in terms of making it through the system and impacting a large number of veterans. So I think it's time to consider that we start to look at the quality of care provided at the beginning when we hire someone and do a more forceful job there, observing their practice, in addition to monitoring them with not just paperwork, but with a data collection system that's relevant to the care they provide. So, for example, monitoring how much blood loss a surgeon has during a surgery is important, but that may not really inform as to whether they can do their surgery well.
But it also isn't just the physicians.
I agree. There are many providers in the hospital who well, let me answer it this way. Nurses in general are required to show me that they prove that they can do a skill. You're asked to suction here, suction this. You're asked to put a piece of equipment together to start an IV or to set up an IV bag. Physicians are often given credit for their training and education and experience. And I think there should be more of a show-me attitude as they're granted the privileges to do skills as other people who work in the hospital are often required to do.
Because there are many other people that work in the hospitals.
Absolutely.
Thank you. I yield back my time.
Thank you, Ms. Miller.